approximately?
I
And
think the first year or two, it really did very, very little. I was lucky to get 100 visits in a day.
oh,
uh,
really?
the blog at
Okay.
all. Yeah. So very, very limited. Most of the promotion, Google had this thing at the time, which they sort of denied for a long time and then sort of came around to the idea, oh yeah, we had that. This thing called the Sandbox, at least that's what SEOs
Hmm.
called it, where essentially for the first few years or few months, if it was a very fast growing site, of a site's existence, it just couldn't rank for anything. Wouldn't rank very well for any terms or phrases at
Hmm.
all. And so MOZ was sort of in that world for its first couple of years. And then I remember one day, I think it was like in the fall of maybe 2004 or five, all of a sudden, our rankings just jumped up for every keyword. Google had taken us out of the sandbox and we like popped out, and started ranking for things. So a lot of the promotion was done by posting to other forums, leaving comments on other people's blog and engaging with them. There was no really social media yet.
Yeah,
So
I remember. Yeah,
yeah,
for
so
sure.
blogs and forums were sort of the only way this was happening. And then we had a big, big success with when I wrote the Beginner's Guide to SEO, right? So
Mm,
I wrote that because there was this, old school magazine that was going to write an article about us,
that's one
Newsweek
point. Yeah.
magazine, back when it was still in print, when you still get it at the newsstand. And because that article was coming out, I thought, oh, lots of people who don't know anything about SEO are going to come visit our website. So
Mm,
I should write a beginner's guide so that they have something to read. Well, not a lot of people came from a Newsweek article about us, right? That was very, very tiny. But what did happen was that when we published that beginner's guide to SEO, a lot of sites wrote about it. They
mm,
saw it, they read it, they thought it was great, they published it. Um, I think Slashdot was one of the big ones, which was kind of the Reddit of its time. It was like getting on the
mm-hmm.
front page of Reddit. And so that drove a ton of traffic to the Moz blog. And after that, it started picking up some steam. People started to know us and recognize us. I got some invitations to speak at conferences and events,
Which
which of
helped.
course I was terrible at. My first few events, I was awful on stage. But eventually, it's like anything else. You start out, you're terrible. You do it again and again. You practice. You try and improve. You watch people who are great at it. You try and imitate them and learn from their style. And eventually, I became a reasonably good speaker. And so now I get invited to keynote events all over the world, which also drove a lot of Moz's growth over those years, because I would go to conferences and events. I'd make relationships with people. They'd ask me to contribute. We'd do whatever it was. We'd do a webinar together, or we'd write a guest piece, or
Mm.
contribute somehow. And then more links would come to Moz and more people would come, and people saw me on stage and they'd go to the website and subscribe to the email. So all of that sort of turned into this flywheel.